Hey friends, so I just watched Season 7, Episode 2 of Game of Thrones, and I have some thoughts and some feelings, as usual, so I want to talk about it. And I'm a little bit worried because the last time I talked about Game of Thrones, it did not go over very well. A lot of overprotective fanboys liked calling me a bitch and a cunt for criticizing their favorite show, so we'll see how this goes. I guess I'm just gonna preface this by saying that I am a huge Game of Thrones fan. It's my favorite show. So I better not get any nerd boys telling me that I'm not a real fan, or why do I have to shit on something that they love? I'm like, okay, I don't understand how you can watch something that you enjoy without critically analyzing it, because for me, that's a lot of the fun, is looking at media that, oh, hi, Stuart. Why do you do this every single time? Can you sit? Yeah, I don't understand how you can watch a show and not critically analyze it and not, I don't know. I think, if you enjoy something, praise it when it's good and expect better when it's not good. So yeah, that's my disclaimer for this. So I was really excited for Season 7. I think Season 6 might be my favorite season out of the whole series. I think it was incredible, and I think Battle of the Bastards and The Winds of Winter were two of the best episodes in the whole series. And especially after coming from Season 5, I was pretty disappointed. I think Season 5 is the weakest season, honestly, in terms of writing and, what happens with the characters. It's not great. So when Season 6 came out, I was nervous. I wasn't super excited to see it because I wasn't a huge... I mean, Season 5 definitely has some good episodes, but overall, I found the season a little bit disappointing. And I don't think that that's an uncommon opinion. So when Season 6 came out, it was such a breath of fresh air because I had low expectations, and then it completely blew me away. And after what they did to Sansa in Season 5... Oh, this is going to have spoilers, by the way, in case you didn't know. After what they did to Sansa, where they, were like, oh, well, Sansa's 18 now, or the actress, what are you doing? What are you doing? He just, put his little paw out. He was like, hey, what's up? Yeah, so it was, Sansa, Sophie Turner, who plays Sansa, it's she literally just turned 18, and the show was great, finally we can rape Sansa. And that's what it felt like, because that was not something that happened in the books. That actually happens with another character, and it seemed like, oh, Sansa hasn't had enough pain and suffering, so let's, graphically rape her on scene, and then, instead of showing it from her point of view, we're going to use this as a catalyst for another character. So it wasn't even about her, it became about Theon, which I had some problems with, but that's not what this video is about. Yeah, anyway, so her, whole progression in Season 6, I thought, was great. I still didn't think that what happened in Season 5 needed to happen, but her comeuppance with Ramsay Bolton was fucking incredible. That was such a great scene. Her little smile at the end is amazing. If you follow me on Twitter, I live tweeted the first and the second episode. I live tweeted the second episode not too long ago because I just watched it. And I know a lot of people liked the first episode, but I was kind of disappointed in it. I know that Season 7 is technically being split up into 2 parts. And I'm not sure if this part is supposed to be 6 episodes or 7 episodes, but in total they're going to be 13 episodes. So I was a little frustrated because the pacing in the first episode was very slow, and with only 6 or 7 episodes, I didn't feel like we had time for a slow episode, And even this episode, the end was pretty dramatic, but I still felt like it was a lot of build-up, and I feel like those 2 could have been condensed into 1 episode because I feel like we're wasting a lot of time. I guess we'll see as the season goes on how the pacing is. But yeah, I just found the first episode pretty disappointing. I found a lot of the dialogue a little, ham-fisted. I think episode 2 was a lot better in comparison. Wasn't perfect. Wasn't like my favorite episode or anything, but I thought it was decent. But I love the conversation with Daenerys and Varys. That's kind of like my dream team, and I'm just like, hashtag Varys for VP. I thought it was an interesting breakdown of, because Daenerys is good, I think. I mean, she's inherently a good character, but she can be very authoritarian in a way, and I think that's kind of one of the concerns with her character, is that hopefully, like, what if she turns, you know, into, like, the Mad King, you know? Because he was very authoritarian. So I think Varys' like, advice and, like, him saying, okay, I'm not going to blindly support you, but I choose to support you, you know? I love the part where she says, promise me if you ever find that I'm, like, failing as a leader, to tell me to my face and not to, like, overthrow me behind my back. And that was a really powerful scene to me. Like, Cersei was talking about the Dothraki as being, like, savage rapists, and these foreigners, and I felt like a lot of her rhetoric was very reminiscent of Trump, because a lot of it was predicated on lies, and a lot of it was, like, this us versus them, these, like, foreigners are savage, and they don't look like us, and they, you know, they're evil rapists and stuff. If you saw my tweets last week, I have a grand hope for what happens with Cersei and Jaime. Basically, so a lot of, like, Jaime's character arc, and a lot of, like, when we first meet him, he's kind of a villain, and as the series goes on, we find him more likable, and he has redeeming qualities, and he does things that are good, but a lot of the reason, like, there's a lot of stigma against him, like, the whole series, this thing he does follows him where he was the Kingslayer, and no one really understands that that was a hard decision for him to make as, like, you know, in the King's Guard, betraying the king is, like, one of the worst things you can do, but hearing his side of the story that, like, the king was going to murder everyone, so that's why he did it for the good of the kingdom, you know, he's kind of branded as, you know, the Kingslayer, the whole series. And I think with Cersei, and you see this at the end of season 6 when she's on the throne and she's, like, destroyed a whole fucking city, you know, and murdered tons of people, he's kind of, like, looking at her from afar as she's on the throne, and he looks very concerned. And I think, and when you look at the interactions from the first episode of season 7, he's very much worried, I think, and afraid of what Cersei's capable of. Her only redeeming factor is her children, and now that all of her children are gone, she has nothing to, like, hold her accountable. So I think the way that I want the series to go is that I want Jaime, the Kingslayer, to become the Queenslayer, because I think it's gonna reach a point where she does so much fucked up shit that he can't stand by morally and let it happen. And Cersei has always been kind of his greatest, like, moral failing. You know, he's ostracized for, like, incest, which is very stigmatized in their society. She does a lot of fucked up shit that he's kind of just, like, stands by and lets it happen. And I think it's gonna reach a point where she just, like, crosses a line, and he's gonna have to, like, search inside of himself and decide that he needs to kill this woman that he loves and his, like, twin sister. And I think that would be a great redemption arc for him. And I also just like the play on, like, Kingslayer becoming the Queenslayer is really cool. So that's my end game. That's what I hope happens. But you never really know with Game of Thrones. You never really know what's gonna happen. I had a lot of feelings about, like, Olenna talking to Daenerys, and she's like, I can't remember a queen that was better loved than my granddaughter, and I was just like, fuck. Marjorie was one of my favorite characters, so I was pretty sad. I'm like, sweet baby Marjorie, I wanted you to have a chance to shine, and you never really got that, and I miss the Olenna Marjorie dream team, but I do have hope that Olenna advising Daenerys will have some good. I don't know, I think she's like real as fuck, and she's seen a lot, and she's like, well, that's great, Daenerys, that you want to avoid war, but you can't get what you want just by being nice. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic between the two of them. Ugh. There's that, like, scene with, like, what's her face, Missandei and Grey Worm, where I was like, this is cute, but it does this thing in Game of Thrones. This is kind of a trope, where there's always, like, a male virgin, and then the first time he has sex, he's just, like, super good at it, and he gives her 1,000,000 orgasms, you know what I mean? He's, like, kissing her, and she's moaning, and he's not even doing anything yet, you know, and he's gonna, like, go down on her, and I'm just like, you've never done this before. I can't imagine you're gonna just, like, be great at it right away. But whatever, it's a show, so gotta, like, suspend my disbelief. The fucking scene with Sam and Jorah was disgusting. And that was the second episode where they, like, transitioned. Because in the first episode, there was that scene with Sam, like, cleaning out everyone's shit, and then it would transition from, like, the shit pots to, like, this gruel, like, soup or whatever, and, you know, eating it. So it was, like, this constant, repeated transition between shit and poop, and it, like, was very jarring. And I think they did a similar thing with, oh god, that was such, I couldn't watch that scene. That was, like, legitimately really grossed me out, when he was, like, removing Jorah's, like, stony skin, and you see, like, this pus seeping out of it, and then it transitions to, like, someone eating a bowl of, like, clam chowder. It was another, I don't know, I think Game of Thrones has really been playing with, like, this back and forth dynamic of cutting between gross and then someone eating something, so you have that, like, just gross natural reaction to it. Sansa and Jon, I liked, I mean, and we saw this in the last episode where he got really mad at her for disagreeing with him in front of everyone, and yet again, they got into another heated argument in front of all of the other families that support them. And I'm just like, guys, do you think maybe you could have talked about this beforehand? Because, like, you don't need, why don't you agree upon something beforehand and then give your announcement to the people? But apparently they need to do everything super publicly. But I loved, oh my god, because Sansa's my favorite character, so I've been waiting this whole time, because Sansa's, so much of her arc is just sitting and learning and watching and being smarter than everyone else, but not being able to do anything, because, you know, she's married to Joffrey, and then she's married to Ramsay, and, like, so much of her arc is, like, being powerless, but quietly sitting and learning and scheming. And I feel like this is finally the time where she can, like, do something now. And so, and I think I was really frustrated. The one thing I was frustrated about at the end of season 6 is that it was basically priming, it was priming us, and, like, setting up Sansa as leader, because Jon is he's a good character, and he's great in battle, but I think you really see in Battle of the Bastards that he's not a great military mind. You know, he's a good fighter, but he has so many, like, he's so stubborn that his actions often, like, and his, like, firm beliefs often become his downfall. And then Sansa goes behind his back with Littlefinger and basically saves the day. And Jon would have been fucking dead. Their whole army would have been dead. And then at the end, like, they crown Jon as king. And that frustrated me a bit, because it felt like they were, like, and even he said, like, Sansa, you should be queen. Or, you're the rightful heir. So then, like, when he was crowned as king of the North, I was just like, what about Sansa? I thought we were, like, building up to this. So I'm really glad that while he's going off to see, like, Daenerys and Tyrion and Melisandre, that she's gonna have a chance to rule over the North. She was not expecting it, and then you just see this, like, stunned look on her face, and then she kind of smiles. I was like, yes, finally, my baby. I fucking love Sansa, so that was really good. And Littlefinger is creepy, continues to be creepy as fuck. I'm just sick of scenes where Sansa's there, and then he's, like, staring in the corner with this smug little grin on his face. Because Littlefinger is kind of like the cockroach of the series, where he's really good at surviving, but he's, like, creepy and slimy and gross, and no one wants to touch him, basically. You know, everyone thinks he's, like, this gross, creepy little, like, cockroach. But I thought the confrontation between him and Jon was really interesting, because he basically is confirming, like, I love Sansa the way that I loved her mother, which is just fucking creepy. It's like, you nasty, huh? And then Jon just, like, fucks him up. And that was good. I wasn't really expecting that scene, but having that scene, I was happy. You transition from that to Arya and the Wolves, and I tweeted, like, oh fuck, what I think is gonna happen better not be what's gonna happen. And I had thought it was gonna be White Walkers, because Arya was, like, breathing, and you could see her, like, her breath in the cold. And that's generally, in the show, when you see that, it's been because the White Walkers are coming. But that is not what happened, and someone pointed out that she was too far south, so that makes sense. But basically, these pack of, like, direwolves come, and it's Nymeria. And I feel like I've been waiting 6 seasons for her to come back, and I was really happy to have that moment. And at first, I was kind of confused, because she says, that's not you, when, you know, you have this, like, sad scene where she says, Numeria, like, come with me, come back to the north, and then she, you know, the wolf turns away and leaves, and, like, she has this heartbreaking look on her face, and at first I was like, does that mean that's not actually Numeria? And, like, that doesn't make sense. And I watched the D&D commentary at the end, and they talk about how this is a throwback to season 1, where Arya is talking to Ned pre-beheading, and he says, oh, well, you're gonna get married, and you're gonna, you know, have sons, and your sons will fight, and she says, no, that's not me. And then having that moment where, like, her and Nymeria are reunited, and she chooses to go another way, and saying that's not you is, like, a direct throwback to that, because neither of them choose to follow, you know? So I thought that was really interesting for her character, and that was a nice moment. I liked it. Then we got some, like, queer baiting with Yara and Ilaria Sand. This is probably not good. I probably shouldn't want this, but there's barely ever any, like, queer lady stuff, so I was, like, into it, and then it was ripped away from me real quick, which is probably for the best, because I don't trust Ilaria. I don't really like, because apparently she's very different in the books, and I don't really love what they do with the Dorne, like, plot lines, but whatever. And I just need to point out how much I fucking hate Euron Greyjoy, because he's so cartoony, and every time he shows up, I'm just like, you're like a soap opera villain. Because in the last season, when he just appears out of nowhere, I'm like, who the fuck is this character? Which is very, like, soap opera-y to me. Like, here's this new character we've never seen before, but, like, he's super important. I think he's a very cartoony, like, over-the-top villain, and I could personally do without him. Just always there to fuck shit up. I don't really think he's that interesting. He's just kind of like a stock, evil, cartoony character. I feel like we had Joffrey, and then we had Ramsay, and then we're gonna have this another pure evil guy, and it gets a little boring after a while, and especially being introduced this late in the game. I could really do without him. He's just like another character in our huge cast of characters, but I guess we needed some more conflict. I think maybe they could have, like, introduced him better, and I would have been more on board for him as a villain, but I don't think that his character has been handled very well, and he's always just there to, like, have these quippy lines, and it feels very, like I'm reading a comic book or something. And there was so much foreshadowing in that episode, because you see, like, the Sand Snakes talking, and they're like, oh, I want to kill this person, I want to kill this person, I want to kill the mountain. And then one of the Sand Snakes says, well, maybe I'll kill you both first, and I'll get them all to myself. And then what happens, 2 of them end up dying. So that was interesting foreshadowing. And then you see, like, Yara and Theon having a conversation with Ilaria about how Theon is there to protect her. Then you have the moment with Euron where he has Yara, and, like, Theon sees everything that's going around, and it's very clear he was tortured. He's having, like, traumatic flashbacks. I think it was a very, like, an effect of having PTSD, and he just, like, can't do it. And then it's just so heartbreaking when he jumps into the water, and I don't know what's going to happen with Yara. I'm hoping, since we didn't see her death, that she's going to stick around for a while, but I'm really worried, because you see some very clear implications of rape with Ilaria and the other Sand Snake, where there's with those dudes in the basement, and she says, kill us, and then he says, no, that's not what we're going to do, and then he lunges towards her. So I'm really hoping this isn't another excuse for them to show graphic rape scenes, because it's enough. We've seen enough of that. And I know that that's very triggering for a lot of fans of Game of Thrones. Like, I know a lot of people who have said, I had to stop watching because of the rape. It was too, like, triggering for me as, like, you know, a rape survivor. I think there are very little, like, good reasons to portray a graphic rape. And it's just hard because it makes it really inaccessible for, like, rape victims to watch the show. And that's a bummer. Because, I mean, and you could argue, a lot of people will argue that Game of Thrones is a very violent, like, gory, fucked up show. But most people haven't experienced, like, murder, you know what I mean? Like, most people aren't going to be triggered by murder, but, like, rape is a thing that happens all the time. So it's a little bit trickier, because that's something that, like, people are actually going to have experience with. Generally, you're not going to see people getting burned alive by dragons, but, like, you know, sexual assault is something that exists in our society, obviously. So it's harder to, like, see depictions of that, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm hoping that doesn't turn into another graphic rape scene, which knowing Game of Thrones, it very well might. That's the show, I guess. And then seeing the sand snakes, like, speared on the ship was just a lot. There's a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. If you've seen the episode, I hope you saw the episode if you're watching this, because this is very spoilery. So, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm curious if you disagree with my analysis, because that's totally cool. Just don't call me, like, a dumb bitch or a fake fan for, like, analyzing the series from my perspective. That's my problem. Disagree with me all you want, but, like, don't talk about how I'm, like, a fake nerd girl or a fake fan, because I'm not, like, praising every aspect of your favorite fucking show. So, yeah. Alright, I will see you guys on Friday for a new video about white privilege. So, you know, something super non-controversial. Anyway, bye.